From the makeshift canvas and wire planes flying over the trenches of the Somme to the striking delta-winged nuclear aircraft of the Cold War, British aviation has an amazing story to tell. It's a tale filled with tea, tenacious engineering, and a determination to never create anything boring. We're kicking this off where it all began: the pioneers and the Great War. The Sopwith Camel, the undisputed king of the dogfight. This rotary engine beast killed more pilots in training than in combat due to its vicious torque. But in the hands of an ace, it could outturn anything in the sky. It was the premier predator of World War I. Then you have the SE-5A, the stable gun platform alternative. While the Camel was wild, the SE-5A was the reliable workhorse that let pilots line up the shot and get home. The Bristol F-2 fighter, a two-seater that forgot it was supposed to be clumsy. Crews realized they could fly this thing like a fighter, with the rear gunner covering the six. It changed the game for two-seat combat. The Handley Page Type O, the heavy hitter of 1917. This was the grandfather of strategic bombing, a twin-engine giant designed to take the war right to the enemy's doorstep under the cover of darkness. The Airco DH-2, the pusher configuration. Before interrupter gears let us shoot through propellers, this was the solution. Put the engine in the back and the Lewis gun in the front. The Vickers Vimy, the transatlantic legend. It was built to bomb Berlin, but it became famous for dragging Alcock and Brown across the Atlantic Ocean when engines were barely reliable enough to cross a county, moving into the Golden Age and the trainers. To the de Havilland Tiger Moth, the universal teacher. If a Commonwealth pilot had wings in World War II, chances are they learned how not to die in this open cockpit biplane. It's rugged, forgiving, and iconic. The Avro 504. The trainer that wouldn't quit. It started as a frontline machine, but found its calling, teaching new aviators the basics of flight for decades. The de Havilland Dragon Rapide, the elegance of pre-war travel. This twin-engine beauty was all about wood, fabric, and looking good while hopping between grass airstrips. The Supermarine S-6B, the racer that forged a legend. This seaplane didn't just win the Schneider Trophy, it taught Mitchell how to build speed, leading directly to the Spitfire. Now we step into the kinetic nightmare of World War II, the fighters, the Hawker Hurricane, the spine of the Battle of Britain. It wasn't the prettiest, but it was a stable gun platform that could take a pounding and keep flying. It did the heavy lifting while the glory went elsewhere. The Supermarine Spitfire, the symbol of resistance. From the Mark I to the Griffin-powered monsters later in the war, this was the interceptor that married aerodynamic perfection with raw firepower. It's the plane that saved a nation. The Bolton-Paul Defiant, the turret fighter experiment. It was a failure in the day fight, getting chewed up by 109s but found a second life as a night fighter, stalking bombers in the dark. The Gloucester Gladiator, the last of the biplane heroes. It fought bravely in Norway and the Mediterranean, proving that maneuverability still counted for something, even against monoplanes. The Hawker Typhoon, the ground attack brute. A thick-winged monster that evolved from a troubled interceptor into the Tiffy, a rocket-firing train-buster that terrified German armor columns. The Hawker Tempest, the high-speed chaser. It was fast enough to catch V-1 flying bombs and run down the early German jets. A true low-level dominator, the Bristol Beaufighter, Whispering Death. A twin-engine heavy fighter that packed a devastating punch of cannons and machine guns, wreaking havoc on shipping and aircraft alike in the Pacific and Europe. The de Havilland Mosquito, the Wooden Wonder. They said you couldn't build a bomber out of plywood, but this thing was so fast it didn't need defensive guns. It could drop a bomb down a chimney and be home for tea before the Luftwaffe scrambled. Switching gears to the heavy metal, the bombers, the Vickers Wellington, the Wimpy. Built with a geodesic framework that made it incredibly tough. You could blow huge holes in the fuselage, and it would still bring the crew home. The Short Stirling, the first four-engine heavy. It suffered from a short wingspan restriction, limiting its altitude, but it paved the way for the giants that followed. The Handley Page Halifax, the unsung hero. It hauled massive loads, towed gliders, and dropped agents. It was the backbone of Bomber Command alongside the Lanks, the Avro Lancaster, the Night Reaper. This was the hammer that shattered the Ruhr, capable of carrying the massive Grand Slam earthquake bombs. The Lank is the definitive British heavy bomber. Then came the absolute revolution, the Jet Age, the Gloucester Meteor, the first Allied jet. It entered the war just in time to tip V-1 rockets with its wingtips. A twin-engine pioneer that ushered in the turbine era, the de Havilland Vampire, the single-engine Goblin. With its twin-boom tail and Goblin engine, it was agile, simple, and the first jet to land on an aircraft carrier, the Hawker Seahawk, elegant and effective. It brought jet power to the Royal Navy in a package that actually worked on a deck. The Supermarine Attacker, a tail-dragger jet. A weird transitional beast that used the Spiteful's wings, proving that even Supermarine had growing pains entering the jet age. The Gloucester Javelin, the Flatiron, a massive delta-wing all-weather interceptor designed to hunt Soviet bombers in the worst British weather. The Hawker Hunter, the definitive transonic fighter. Beautiful lines, 4 30mm cannons, and handling so sweet that pilots still weep talking about it. It was the gold standard of the 50s. The Supermarine Swift, the one that didn't make the cut. Fast, but plagued with issues, it quickly got sidelined by the Superior Hunter. Step it up to the Cold War deterrent, the V-Force, the Vickers Valiant, the Pathfinder. It was the first to drop the bomb, a conventional-looking jet that brought the RAF into the nuclear age. The Handley Page Victor, the sci-fi Crescent Wing. It looked like a spaceship and flew like a fighter. Even after it retired from bombing, it served for decades as a tanker, dragging fighters across oceans. The Avro Vulcan, the Delta Wing god of war. This thing is a psychological weapon. When a Vulcan howls overhead, the ground shakes. It proved it could still fight during the Black Buck raids in the Falklands, shutting down a runway from thousands of miles away. We can't forget the naval legends and carrier ops, the ferry Swordfish, the String Bag, an obsolete biplane that didn't know it was supposed to retire. It crippled the Italian fleet at Taranto and jammed the Bismarck's rudder. Slow, ugly, and absolutely lethal. The Ferry Firefly, the heavy hitter, a 2-seat recon fighter that spanned from World War II well into the Korean War. The Ferry Gannet, the Double Mamba, a submarine hunter with contra-rotating props and a look only a mother could love. It was ugly, loud, and incredibly effective at finding subs. The de Havilland Sea Vixen, the twin-boom beast. The pilot sat under a canopy. The navigator sat in a coal hole next to him. A potent missile carrier that defined fleet air arm power in the 60s. The Blackburn Buccaneer, the brick that flew. Built from a solid block of aluminum to fly at 50 feet above the waves at nearly the speed of sound. It was rock stable and delivered nukes or conventional iron with pinpoint accuracy. The Hawker Siddeley Harrier, the jump jet. The Game Changer, vertical takeoff, hovering in combat, VIFF-ing to force enemies to overshoot. It turned the Falklands War around and remains an engineering miracle. The Sea Harrier, the Shar, the navalized fighter that took on mirages and came out on top. Let's get some range with transports and airliners. The de Havilland Comet, the Tragedy and the Triumph, the world's first jet airliner. It taught the world hard lessons about metal fatigue, but paved the way for every passenger jet flying today. The Bristol Britannia, the Whispering Giant. A turboprop marvel that offered quiet luxury before the jets took over completely. The Vickers VC-10, the Queen of the Skies. With 4 rear-mounted engines, it was powerful, quiet, and could take off from hot and high runways that left Boeing 707s grounded. The BAC-111, the regional workhorse. It brought jet travel to the short-haul masses and screamed its way through the sky for decades. The Hawker Siddeley Trident, the Tech Pioneer, the first airliner to perform a fully automatic landing in blind conditions. It was fast, but fuel-hungry. The Concorde, the Anglo-French speed demon. Okay, it's a joint project, but it's British engineering at its peak. Mach 2 cruising speed, edge of space altitude. It wasn't just a plane, it was a statement. The Short Sky Van, the Flying Shoebox. It's a shed with wings. Ugly as sin, but you can drive a forklift into the back of it. The Britten-Norman Islander, the bush pilot's friend. Simple, rugged, and capable of landing on a patch of grass the size of a tennis court. Moving on to the experimental and the weird. The Saunders Roe Princess, the Flying Boat Hotel, 10 engines, massive luxury. It was obsolete before it flew, but what a magnificent failure. The Bristol Brabazon, the giant that never was, built for an era of ocean liner luxury in the sky that never materialized. The BACTSR-2, the Heartbreak, the most advanced strike aircraft of its time, canceled by politicians. It's the great what-if of British aviation history, the Fairey Rotodyne, the Vertical Bus, a compound gyroplane that looked like the future of city-to-city transport until the noise complaints killed it. The Saunders Roe SR-53. The Rocket Interceptor, a mixed-power fighter designed to climb like a missile to catch Soviet bombers. The Short SC-1, the VTOL testbed, the ugly little experimentation craft that proved the physics for the Harrier. Time for the rotorcraft. Helicopters, the Westland Whirlwind, the localized classic, based on a Sikorsky, but re-engineered with British hearts. A search and rescue staple, the Westland Wessex, the Nose-High Queen. It served as a commando carrier and anti-sub platform, a distinct turbine whine that every Falklands vet remembers. The Westland Scout/Wasp, the Agile Wasps, small, nimble, and armed with torpedoes or missiles. They operated from the tiny decks of frigates in the worst seas imaginable. The Westland Lynx, the Looping Lunatic, the most agile helicopter in the world. It holds speed records and can barrel roll. A mainstay of Army and Navy operations, the Westland Sea King, the search and rescue icon. Whether plucking sailors from the Atlantic or hunting subs, this license-built legend was the comforting sound of salvation. The Augusta Westland Merlin, the modern Titan, 3 engines, massive range, and the capacity to haul a platoon into the fight. Finally, the modern era and joint projects, the Sepicat Jaguar, the Mud Mover, a joint project with France, but the RAF flew the legs off it. Low-level strike, reconnaissance, and atomic delivery, rugged and reliable. The Panavia Tornado GR1/GR4, the Tonka. Variable geometry wings let it go fast on the deck or cruise high. It cracked Iraqi airfields wide open with JP-233s. The Tornado F3, the Interceptor variant. It wasn't a dogfighter, but it was a long-range sniper designed to patrol the North Sea and smack down bombers before they got close. The BAE Hawk, the Red Arrow, the trainer that handles like a fighter. It's trained generations of pilots and looks good doing it in red paint. The Eurofighter Typhoon, the Agile King, a Delta Canard instability nightmare kept in the air by computers. It turns so hard the pilot grays out before the airframe gives up. The BAE Tyrannus, the Future Ghost, a stealth combat drone demonstrator that looks like an alien spacecraft. It shows that while the pilot might be leaving the cockpit, British engineering isn't leaving the fight. From the wood and wire of the Sopwith to the composite skin of the Typhoon, this is the hardware that kept an island nation punching way above its weight class for over a century.